Hey guys, I know it's been a while, but I'm finally back. There's been a lot of crazy stuff going on, especially with my channel, but all that matters is that I'm here. Anyways, today, I'm gonna be ranking my top 10 My Little Pony episodes. This is all gonna be my opinion, and I'm gonna go into detail about why, without spending 95% of the video reciting the episode with memes. I'm looking at you, top 6 darkest episodes. This will also only contain singular episodes, so two-parters of the specials will be saved for their own video. Lastly, this review falls under fair use of copyright law, and you should support the series by watching it on streaming platforms or DVD. Finally, let's move on to what I consider to be the top 10 My Little Pony episodes. Everyone knows Rainbow Dash, the hyperactive, athletic, and most of the time cocky Pegasus, right? Now instead of imagining an episode with her zooming past everyone in a race with the Wonderbolts, imagine one where she's stuck in a hospital bed with a singular book. Yep, Season 2 Episode 16's Read It and Weep does just that, and it does it extremely well. The plot of the episode revolves around Rainbow Dash crashing and injuring her wing, causing her to stay in the hospital for a few days while her wing recovers. Immediately, Rainbow Dash complains about not being able to fly or finish the things she needs to do, so Twilight, being Twilight, instead gives her a book and recommends she read it if she gets bored. We then see Rainbow Dash bored out of her mind, and she eventually gets so hopeless that she ultimately decides to read the book, which is none other than Daring Do and the Quest for the Sapphire Stone. Rainbow Dash surprisingly immediately falls in love with the book, but she then realizes that she stooped to a low level that she used to think was nerdy. This then introduces the big dilemma of the episode, where we see Rainbow Dash struggle between choosing to enjoy the book and become what she believes as nerdy, or reverting back to the way she was. It then becomes clear that she loves the book too much to return to hating on reading, so she then employs the new tactic of hiding her newfound interest from everyone. We also see this linger as she finally gets to leave the hospital, but she's forced to leave the Daring Do book behind. This then causes her to try and get back into the hospital, and when it doesn't work, she decides to literally break into the hospital in order to steal the book. Ultimately, she's caught and forced to reveal that she's a fan of reading, and everyone immediately is understanding, and the episode wraps up around there. I think that the way they played Rainbow's struggle with showing other people what she likes is a great lesson to those who watch the episode, and it's also funny to see her make a big deal out of liking something as common as a book. It's a great progression in Rainbow Dash's character that I feel can sometimes be lost in episodes like 246 Great and Non-Compete Clause, both of which I would consider as some of the show's worst work. I like it when Rainbow Dash, while still having the same prideful personality, is shown to have genuine interests that break her stereotype of only caring about flying for the Wonderbolts. It's refreshing to see her have some more depth to her character, and I appreciate that she's stuck with liking Daring Do throughout the rest of the series. The sequence of Rainbow Dash breaking into the hospital is also one of my favorite scenes, mostly because of the sheer irony. She quite literally could have easily broken into Twilight's library to take the Daring Do book, but she ultimately decided that stealing the book was the best idea. The police chase near the end is also extremely out of place for a previously chill episode, and the scene with the barking pony makes the whole situation even weirder. This episode is whimsy, weird, and surprisingly adventurous, and I ultimately think that it's an underrated episode from the earlier seasons of the show. I'm a sucker for haunted house episodes of TV shows, and Season 4 Episode 3's Castle Mania is no exception. The episode begins with Twilight being sent to the castle of the two sisters to recover a book that she needs for her research. The castle is shown to lay in ruins, and its spooky atmosphere is very apparent right off the bat. The main six is then all brought towards the castle for their own separate reasons, but none of them have any clue that the other groups are there. For the remainder of the episode, we see glimpses into the three groups attempting to accomplish what they went there for, but we see them get occasionally more and more freaked out as the night goes on. We then discover through a book that Twilight found about a strange organ, and we see it being played by a mysterious entity who is rumored to be the evil remnant of Nightmare Moon, known as the Pony of Shadows. This immediately causes the ponies to go into panic, and we see the different groups interact with each other, not even knowing that the others are there. Soon, Twilight finds them all freaking out in the middle of the castle, and she rounds up the group to find out what's going on. The organ then continues playing, and tensions rise as the group searches for the Pony of Shadows. Twilight timidly walks up towards the pony at the organ, and it just turns out to be Pinkie Pie. You then see them all finally accomplish what they initially came there for, and the episode seems to end, until we get a glimpse of what looks to be the real Pony of Shadows, which I had no clue until today was the same Pony of Shadows who appears later in the series as a large villain. Talk about some great foreshadowing. This episode really stood out to me, as the setting isn't only eerie and decrepit, but it also has a certain charm to it that gives me the nostalgic Halloween mood. This is definitely one of the episodes you should revisit every October, and it ticks all the boxes of what makes a great spooky season episode. I think that the choice they made to separate the groups was extremely clever, as we see the ponies interact with each other, not even knowing the others are there. It's not only comedic, but it's also cool to see where their stories intertwine throughout the episode. The reasons for the separate groups being there don't even have anything to do with each other, and it's the epitome of the wrong place at the wrong time. The mystery of the pony as shadows throughout the episode also heightens the atmosphere, as the viewers only know just as much about the strange entity as the ponies do. When you see the pony for the first time at the organ, you start to wonder if there really is a mysterious element to the castle. But it of course turns out to be Pinkie Pie. The double plot twist at the end also provides a high note to the episode, as we realize that there is in fact a pony of shadows, which I'm glad was explained in later seasons. In the end, I think that this episode is heavily underrated, and its comedy combined with its mysterious atmosphere should be brought up way more often among fans of the show. It's definitely an episode worth revisiting, and it's what I believe to ultimately be the 9th best episode of the show, in my opinion. Ever wish there was an episode of My Little Pony that only focused on the villains? Then Season 9 Episode 8's Frenemies is an extremely good choice. The episode is based around Cozy Glow, T-Rex, and Queen Chrysalis working in unison to obtain the Bewitching Bell. This bell was used to suck the power out of anyone it was used against, making it the final weapon that was planned to be used against the main six, which makes this episode significant in moving the main plot forward. However, the episode itself is not only refreshing from the normal formula, but the added differences between the three villains create a great bond between the characters that doesn't feel cliche or forced. Cozy Glow's main focus is using friendship against the enemy, as it is the most powerful force overall. T-Rex's focus is using raw strength to become the most powerful against everyone else. And Queen Chrysalis is just a changeling, which means it's in her nature to feed off of other people's joy in order to become more powerful. The episode also includes one of my personal favorite musical numbers of the whole series, and it gives me a heavy Kidnap the Sandy Claus vibe that fits perfectly for the trio's character. I also love the dynamic of seeing them work together to obtain the bell, and how differently they each approach it. While I think that the settings of the episode are a little bland, with there only being the mountain and the cave, I think that the focus on the episode was on the characters rather than the settings and adventure. I also like how unserious the trio of villains are about everything they're trying to accomplish. Cozy Glow is easy to get annoyed if nothing goes her way, but T-Rex and Queen Chrysalis take nothing seriously, and just try to use tactics they're familiar with to get the bell. Then when their tactics don't work, they have to resort to working together, which is a cool aspect to see from a villain's perspective. The ending is also very satisfying, as the group gets extremely close to just giving into friendship, but Queen Chrysalis ultimately decides against it due to how gross she feels it is. This episode is also majorly important for the finale of the show, and I think that seeing a bit into what the villains are doing is always a fine treat. I personally didn't like how Season 5 had Starlight vanish after the premiere and pop up again at the finale, as I felt it kinda put her character on hold until she was needed again. That's why I think this episode is something special. It breaks the standard formula of having a plot-related event only occur in the beginning or final episodes of the season, and it does it with a ton of care, comedy, and great writing. This is also one of the only instances where we get to see what the villain is up to, and it's one of the few episodes to include little to no appearance of the main six at all. As much as I love the main group, I'm a sucker for seeing what's going on with the other characters in the background. Overall, I found this episode funny, clever, entertaining, and well written, and I think that it's truly one of the most unique episodes of the show. Hearthwarming Eve is a tradition in the My Little Pony universe that substitutes for Christmas, and in Season 2 Episode 11, we get a fun episode that discusses the origins of the holiday. It starts with the main six preparing for the performance on stage, acting out the first Hearthwarming Eve. However, the preparations aren't the most stable, as there's a ton of arguing and fighting between the group due to an onslaught of stress and fear of being on stage. Soon the play begins, and we have Spike introduce the play as the rest of the ponies jump into action. We get some great visuals and glimpses as the story explains the different groups of ponies before the holiday. The Pegasi, Earth ponies, and Unicorns were all focused on sustaining their own groups, until a long winter storm caused famine among them, plunging them into an ice age that caused them to look for a new place to stay. We then get scenes of the ponies acting out the groups accusing each other of the strange weather habits, and each group begins searching for a new place that is free from the cold. We then see the process of how the different groups began searching for new land, and they ultimately all stumbled upon the exact same spot at the same time. This then caused anger between them, but they were forced to stay in a nearby cave as the winter storm followed them. The three different groups of ponies then began arguing and separating from each other, and this soon caused the evil creatures known as the Wendigos to begin freezing each of the ponies. In a desperate attempt to save themselves, three of the ponies realized that the arguing and fighting were what brought the storm, so they agree to respect one another as equals. This then marks the beginning of Hearthwarming Eve, as we see the different ponies spend time together and sing carols as they waited for the winter storm to pass. The play then ends, and we see a pretty holiday-esque song from the main six. Afterwards, the group goes backstage again and they begin arguing, but they're quickly reminded that their arguing doesn't help anyone and that they should all be grateful for the holiday season. I'm a big fan of the way that they portrayed Hearthwarming Eve, as its unique story and history helped explain the different kinds of ponies, as well as what their own holiday was all about. The different settings and story elements were very interesting, and we got to see how each group lived differently from one another. The Unicorns had been the high-class modest kind of ponies, the Earth ponies were all farmers and harvesters, and the Pegasi were all a tribe of strong warriors who were willing to fight. It's clear during the episode why their differences had broken their groups apart, but it's nice to see that they worked together in the end. This episode is one of the few heartwarming episodes throughout the series, and I honestly wish that there was more where that came from. I love the different setting and mood, and it's definitely one of the episodes that'll help get you into the Christmas spirit, even if it isn't specifically mentioned as Christmas. Overall, I think that this episode is a great demonstration of how to pull off a good backstory, and I think that its charm and story, combined with its clever demonstration, makes it a very underrated episode. I find it funny that this is the second castle episode I've put on this list, both of which are the third episodes of a season, and only one season apart at that. Either way, I'm a sucker for castle episodes, and Season 5 Episode 3's Castle Sweet Castle is no exception. The episode mainly revolves around the main six realizing that Twilight is acting strange. Twilight seems to be hopping around town to occupy herself and avoid the castle, and the group eventually calls her out while they're eating pancakes. We discover that she doesn't feel like the castle is her home like the old library was. The rest of the episode revolves around the group trying to decorate the empty castle to make it seem more livable, but their different styles and ideas completely clash and make the place look interesting. The episode then introduces an A and B plot, where we see the rest of the main six decorate the castle while Spike tries to stall for time with Twilight. We also get a pretty catchy song about how the group will make the castle a home, and the group finally agrees on something to add to the castle. In the end, Spike stalls just long enough for Twilight to return to the finished castle, and she's shocked to see the roots of the old library as the centerpiece in their main room, and that's about where the episode ends. Now, this episode in hindsight seems pretty standard, and you may be questioning why I even included it in the first place. It all boils down to the fact that this episode, for no reason at all, is so freaking funny. From Pinkie Pie choking on a measuring spoon, to Spike's weird Rarity plush, to Twilight's hairstyle, to Bulk biceps crashing through the wall, it completely had me laughing way more than it needed to, and the jokes are played so well for no reason at all. The comedy of My Little Pony greatly improved as the seasons went on, and you could easily tell that the writers of the show began to figure out who their demographic was and what the comedy of the show should be like. I take jokes like these over a crude or explicit joke from an adult show any day of the week, and it's why I think so many people like this show for what it is. It doesn't try too hard to get its audience to laugh. It just does what it wants to, and does it well. It's also why I enjoyed the emotional ending of the episode, where we see the effort her friends put into displaying the Golden Oak Library's tree roots. Acts like these amplify the main morals of the story with friendship, and I like how well the group's dynamic is displayed throughout the episode. We don't have everyone being happy and agreeing on the same things. We see them argue and debate over what they should put into the castle, just because they want Twilight to feel at home. It's not only a good lesson to teach the main characters, but it also teaches the viewers that friendship and caring for others is unconditional. In the end, this episode's comedic moments, as well as its great display of friendship, really amplifies it, and it's why it makes it the 6th best episode, in my opinion. Backstories are always super intriguing in any TV show, and Season 1 Episode 23's The Cutie Mark Chronicles showcases how the main six obtained their cutie marks. The episode starts with the Cutie Mark Crusaders failing at ziplining, and they finally decide that they need to ask how the main six got their cutie marks to give them ideas. The rest of the episode then goes into flashback form, as we see each member of the main six obtain their cutie marks. Applejack tells her story of when she went on trip to Manhattan to visit her relatives. She then began feeling homesick when she suddenly saw a rainbow pointing her back home, and she got her cutie mark after returning. Fluttershy tells her story of how one day in Cloudsdale, the racers passing by her caught her off balance, causing her to fall. Before she hit the ground, she was then rescued by butterflies. She then saw a giant rainbow in the distance, which caused the animals around her to panic, but Fluttershy calmed them down, earning her her cutie mark. Rarity then tells her story of how her horn had dragged her to a rock, but a rainbow caused it to crack, showcasing gems within it. This then earned Rarity's cutie mark as she realized how much she loved fashion. Twilight's story began with her entrance exam into Celestia's school, and she struggled to find a way to hatch a dragon egg. Ultimately, the rain boom occurred behind her, causing her to cast a spell that hatched the egg, earning Twilight her cutie mark. And Spike. Pinkie Pie's story began on the rock farm, and the rain boom caused her to realize how important smiles were as she was overjoyed to see it. She then threw a party out of joy, and this earned Pinkie Pie her cutie mark. Lastly, Rainbow Dash told her story of how she created a sonic rain boom during a race, and this causes the main six to realize that the same rain boom was what gave all of them their cutie marks, which is around where the episode ends. This episode greatly surprised me, as each different story felt unique to its corresponding character, and the connection with the rain boom was really interesting. It's significant as it shows how the group was united way back before they knew each other, and how each of their destinies ultimately resulted in the group coming together. The unique nature of this episode is also what makes it significant, as we rarely get episodes that are split into multiple stories, yet alone that are flashbacks. It also gives us more insight into why each character acts so differently. Applejack realizes that she dislikes formality, Fluttershy realizes that she loves life on the ground, Rarity finds an inspiration for creating dresses, Twilight finds her skill set in magic, Pinkie Pie finds her joy from making others happy, and Rainbow Dash connects them all by showcasing her flying ability. I'm also glad that for a Cutie Mark Crusader episode, it isn't mainly focused on them, and they choose a smart decision in asking for help rather than trying and failing at something like most episodes. It's also significant to them, as they discover their intrigue on finding others' cutie marks. I think that the Cutie Mark Chronicles is the best Cutie Mark Crusader episode, and its significance combined with creative storytelling makes it a standout among the other episodes. In the end, this is why I chose to put it on the list. Hey, do you guys hear that?
Hey! Are you still watching this episode? Wait, don't skip forward. Just give me like 1 second. If you like our content, then consider watching our second channel, where we post gaming and other stuff. And if you want to chat to some people just like you, or me, then check out our Discord server. Anyways, let's go to number 4.
You automatically know that any episode of a show with Weird Al Yankovic in it is automatically going to be in my top 10. And Season 4 Episode 12's Pinkie Pride is a great reminder of that. The episode revolves around a mysterious traveling pony named Cheese Sandwich, who comes to Ponyville seeking a party to throw for someone. Obviously, the party pony of Ponyville is none other than Pinkie Pie. Oh my gosh, that alliteration. So the arrival of Cheese immediately causes a feud between the two of them. We then get a song that introduces Cheese Sandwich, and another song followed by that about how Pinkie Pie knows that she also is good enough to throw a party. The two of them fight in the next song over making a better party for Rainbow Dash, but in the end, they realize that their feud made the party annoying rather than fun. The two then realize that their differences could have been solved, and Cheese admits that he got his aspiration of parties from seeing Pinkie Pie when he was young. The two then make amends, throw a final party for Rainbow Dash, and say their goodbyes as Cheese Sandwich departs Ponyville. While the premise and summary are pretty simple, the episode is played off very well and whimsically. The scenes are very creative, and there's a ton of unique imagery in this episode that isn't seen anywhere else in the series, including a creepily realistic shot of Gummy. Cheese Sandwich's music is also directly from Weird Al, amplifying his character and the episode as a whole. Pinkie Pie's character is also played well, and she doesn't come off as annoying or competitive. Her song is also one of the best Pinkie Pie songs in the series, and we can see her thought process change from self-conscious to confident. I feel like the show lacks a bit of depth with Pinkie Pie's character, and it's nice to see an episode where we can see an emotion that's not just pure hyperactive joy. Another thing I enjoyed was Cheese Sandwich himself, and his appearance in the show had a huge sense of significance. He's one of the few background characters in the show who has a ton of depth to his character, and he goes from a stranger to a fan favorite in just a short 20-minute episode. The addition of Boneless was also a great parallel to Pinkie Pie and Gummy, even though one of them is made out of rubber. Overall, I think that Cheese Sandwich is an underrated character, and he got the significance he deserved. The feud between Cheese and Pinkie is also played very well, and it's funny once you realize that the two of them are almost the exact same. As funny as the beef between them was, I was shocked to see it played surprisingly seriously, as Pinkie Pie tried her best to prove to Ponyville that she was the ultimate party pony, because she'd pretty much be out of the job if she couldn't. Ultimately though, I'm glad that they came to terms and worked together at the end, and it shows that the competition doesn't always mean that you have to prove who's better. Overall, I think that this episode was greatly written in terms of story and music, and the introduction of Cheese's amazing character makes this one of the best episodes of the show, in my opinion. When My Little Pony ultimately reached Season 5, it was also nearing the 100th episode. Obviously, the showrunners decided to do something very special, which is where Season 5 Episode 9's Slice of Life comes into play. We always get these adventures with the main six and their perspectives, but what about an episode with the background characters' perspectives? This episode aims to display just that, and it's all premised around Cranky's marriage with Matilda. Their wedding was planned for the next day, but the two panic as they realize that the dates were set to that day. We then get scenes with many of the fan favorite characters in this show. We see Derpy Hoof / Muffin / Ditsy Doo, who was the culprit for setting the wrong date. We see Dr. Hooves, who is obviously a play on the various doctors from Doctor Who. That was probably the worst sentence I've ever written. And we see his character along with many others. Oh, hey, it's Button Mash. I heard there's an interesting video essay made about him. Anyways, it also turns out that all the while, a bugbear has broken out of Tartarus, and had began attacking the city. We see glimpses of the main six stopping them in the background, and we see more backstory with two other fan favorite ponies, Lyra Heartstrings and Bon Bon. It turns out that Bon Bon worked for an organization to stop various monsters, but she had to go undercover once the bugbear escaped from Tartarus. Also, Lyra had no clue, and she's very clearly outraged. There's also a scene with Pinkie Pie's pet Gummy, and we find out that there's a whole lot more going on with him internally.
What is life? Is it nothing more than the endless search for a cutie mark?
Anyway, the characters scramble to set up the wedding and escape from the bugbear, and they surprisingly get married successfully. The episode ends as we see the wedding come to a close, with the bugbear being successfully stopped by the main six. This episode is extremely special to me, and to most hardcore fans of the series. There had been many widespread chats, rumors, and memes, a lot of memes, about the various background characters of the show, and it's nice to see many fan favorites get more screen time with more story. I'm also glad that the episode only focused on the background characters and their story. Like stated in the Frenemies episode, I love the main six, but it's nice to see a change in the story with the other characters. I also would personally rank this higher than Frenemies, as I think that the settings, storyline, and characters are handled with a lot more care and attention to detail. They easily could have just thrown everyone on screen with little to no character, but it's clear that they made each character diverse and interesting. They showcased almost every fan favorite character, and they did so without it being overbearing or bland, which is extremely impressive with the amount of characters in this episode. Some of the dynamics between the characters were also done with a lot of care. We see great scenes with Dr. Hooves and Derpy/Muffin/Ditzy, and how their contrasting personalities work together so well. There's also great scenes with Matilda and Cranky where we see how their relationship affects them and the people around them, and funny scenes with DJ Pone 3 and Octavia Melody, Rose and the Flower Girls, as well as with Steve and Magnet. Overall, I think that this episode is filled with entertaining scenes, deep characters, and realistic relationships. This episode truly deserves the great reputation it has, and it's a great treat for the fans of the show. As the 100th episode of My Little Pony, Slice of Life is truly a very special episode. Every top 10 video or tier list out there has one episode that's different from the rest. As much as I've liked to believe that most of these choices in my ranking are pretty universal, Season 6 Episode 8's A Hearth's Warming Tale is surely an outlier. The episode revolves around Starlight's struggle with appreciating the Hearth's Warming Eve holiday, so Twilight and Spike decide to read her a tale of Hearth's Warming. It's very clearly a parody of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, but it's filled to the brim with great references and an interesting take on the story. We see Starlight fill the shoes of Snowfall/Ebenezer Scrooge, as she's shown to argue with Snowdash/Bob Cratchit/Rainbow Dash about the importance of the Hearth's Warming holiday. We then get a song from Snowfall about how she hates Hearth's Warming and plans to cast a spell to get rid of it, but it all changes when the spirit of Hearth's Warming past, shown as Applejack, takes her through a flashback of her older Hearth's Warming experiences. The spirit sings about how much she's changed since she was younger, and how the experiences have shaped her. In the flashback, we see her professor, who oddly looks like Severus Snape, ridicule her for caring so much about the holiday, which ultimately flips her perspective. Afterwards, Snowfall gets sent back to her shop, when the spirit of Hearth's Warming present, shown as Pinkie Pie, pops up to show her how Hearth's Warming is currently affecting the other ponies. The spirit begins singing about how magical Hearth's Warming is, as she brings Snowfall around the town to show her the holiday in action. We see everyone joyously hang out together, as well as Snowdash and her friends gossip and mock Snowfall for hating the holiday. We then see Snow Billow, as the spirit of Hearth's Warming future, shown as Princess Luna, sings the final song about how Snowfall's spell will ultimately cause a dark future that will result in the earth falling into an eternal winter. Snowfall then ultimately reappears in the present, and we see her go around apologizing about her negative attitude towards the holiday, and she is ultimately forgiven by Snowdash and the rest of the town. And that's about where the book ends. Twilight then puts the book down and invites Starlight to the town's Hearth's Warming celebration, and she ultimately joins them in a final encore that ends the episode. Now yes, I know that the original Hearth's Warming episode was more original, but the songs combined with the great characters and faithful adaptation of Charles Dickens' story makes this episode so much more special to me. This is one of the only episodes of the show that's treated as a musical. And man, are the songs in this episode amazing. There's not a single song in this episode I don't like, and it greatly amplifies the story as well as the mood. We have Snowfall's evil villain-esque song as she crafts a spell to use against Hearth's Warming, the past spirit's jolly song about how much Hearth's Warming had meant to Snowfall in the past, the present spirit's playful song about how the Hearth's Warming holiday creates joy and unity among everyone, the future spirit's dark and dreary song about how Hearth's Warming's extinction would affect the world, and a final classic holiday-like tune about how much Hearth's Warming means to everyone. Each song feels very different with its lyrics, melody, and tone, and it's surprising to see songs with such different emotions to this magnitude, represented in the same episode. Ultimately, I think this episode is the best in terms of music, but that doesn't take away from how great the story is. Charles Dickens' original Christmas Carol story is an instant classic, and it's had some amazing adaptations over the long years. I love the way that it's represented here, as it still remains a bittersweet charm from the original novel and amplifies it with My Little Pony's bold characters, animation, and music. In the end, I still believe that this is the superior Hearth's Warming episode, and every bit of the episode is done impressively well. I ultimately think that this is the most underrated episode, and I wish more people talked about it. But hey, it's just my opinion. Before we move on to my number one pick, let's first go through some quick honorable mentions. It's not often that we see an episode with mostly Discord, but Season 7 Episode 12's Discord and Harmony does just that. It's based around Discord attempting to set up his first tea party with Fluttershy at his house, and we see him struggle between having it seem normal or doing it his own way. It's rare that we see this much character from Discord, and it shows how much he really cares about Fluttershy. Ultimately, I think this episode is underrated, and it's definitely a good one. I'm not gonna lie, I was never a big fan of the Cutie Mark Crusaders, but Season 5 Episode 18's Crusaders of the Lost Mark was definitely one of the best episodes. We see the Crusaders struggle with their biggest enemy, Diamond Tiara, but we see their effects slowly change her throughout the episode. Ultimately, she sides with the Crusaders in the end, giving them their cutie marks after 5 flipping seasons. Anyways, The introduction of Modpie's character in Season 4 Episode 18 is such a comedic episode, and it greatly displays her character along with the main sixes. We see the group struggle to relate to Mod, and it's a great demonstration of how it can sometimes be hard for some people to fit in. However, the group eventually comes to terms with their differences, and they ultimately learn that being friends doesn't always mean being similar. Season 6 Episode 13 Stranger Than Fanfiction, besides its questionable name, is one of my favorite episodes because of two reasons. The first unbiased reason is the great adventure between Rainbow Dash and Quibblepants, and the interesting settings. The second reason is because Quibblepants is voiced by Patton Oswalt, aka Ratatouille, aka Jesse from Minecraft Story Mode.
That's a compelling argument.
Season 5 Episode 15's Rarity Investigates is one of the most unique episodes of the whole show. It parodies the iconic noir mystery and places Rarity in the shoes of someone like Sherlock Holmes. The episode revolves around her trying to figure out who sent one of the Wonderbolts a fake note to excuse him from the performance, and she ultimately tracks it down to Windrider, an ex-Wonderbolt. The mystery aspect is done well, and the noir style is done comedically and effectively. And that concludes my honorable mentions. Without further ado, it's time to look at what I consider the best My Little Pony episode. If you're looking for an episode that sticks to landing perfectly, then look no further to Season 7 Episode 13's The Perfect Pair, an episode focused around the backstory of Pear Butter and Bright Mac, the parents of Applejack, Apple Blue, and Big Macintosh. I talked about this episode a bit in my Darkest Episodes video, so I apologize for the repetition, but it's hard to brush past the incredible nature that this episode portrays. Throughout most of the show, we've known about the relationships between the main six and their families, but we never got insight into why the Apple family had Granny Smith as the caretaker, rather than a set of parents. This episode was then created to answer just that. The story goes that Apple Bloom had bought some pear jam, and the Apple family becomes outraged as they explain the feud between their family as well as the Pear family. They soon realize, however, that they're not really sure why it happened, so they visit around and ask ponies who knew their parents about the full backstory. We get the story of their relationship between them, discovering that they both fell in love, even though their families were angry with each other. We see how their relationship affects other ponies, and how it eventually led to Pear Butter joining the Apple family and marrying Bright Mac. We also get a beautiful love song from Pear Butter about how much she loves Bright Mac, and it's extremely emotional with its lyrics and melody. This episode leaves room to reflect on both the Apple family and the viewers alike. We see how the two ponies affected each other's lives, as well as the people around them, and how their legacy could still be remembered long after they died. While their death isn't explicitly stated, it's clearly implied, and as dark as it is, it's portrayed beautifully and intricately. We see tons of emotion throughout the episode, and it tugs at your heartstrings with a firm grip. The struggles between the two of them are also very difficult and relatable. We see how the two of them are forced to be kept apart, and how it affects each of them differently. As much as the two of them love each other, their families refuse to share the same emotions, and it makes what they have so much more meaningful. It's clear that the two care for each other unconditionally, and that throughout their struggles, they still long to pursue each other. That's what makes their love so meaningful. It's sacrificial in the way that the two of them have to give up their relationships with their families, as well as with themselves. This episode also does great with its storytelling, as it has an even mix of explaining the story as well as showing the viewers firsthand. It's easy to feel connected to the two characters, as we dive into their lives and take a glance at their past experiences and feelings. I also found the narration between the different characters is very informative and diverse. We see the beginning of their story with a family historian, and how their different families had come together unexpectedly. Then we see the perspective of Bright Mac's friend Burnt Oak, and how his side of the story had occurred. Then lastly, we get Mrs. Cake's perspective, with Pear Butter's side of the story, and the three work in tangent to paint a full picture. Not only is the storytelling great, but the flashback sequences are very beautiful and stunning, with there being many symbolic messages and themes scattered throughout that signify their close bond. The visuals are also stunning, with many scenes and locations being drawn beautifully and with heaps of care. The stunning nature of the storytelling, visuals, and characters alike are what make this the best episode of the show, and I think that it far exceeds anything that had been done before or since. The Perfect Pair, without a doubt in my mind, is my favorite episode of the show, and I hope that anyone watching it could appreciate it just like I do. In the end, this was all just my personal opinion, and I'd be curious to see how your top 10 differs from mine, and why. Feel free to scream at me in the comments on why I'm wrong, because I will read it, and take it into consideration. Yes, I read the comments. Anyways, make sure to check out our second channel and Discord if you have the chance, and comment some videos you'd like to see on the channel, regardless of if it's My Little Pony or not. Anyways, I'm gonna switch it over to Sentimental Me, so I'll see ya. Hey guys, Josh here. I just wanted to say a couple things before the video ended. First of all, I just want to thank you for all of the support, all the freaking support. I never thought we'd hit over 1,000 views, but hey,
I'm not complaining. It's great to see that you guys enjoy my videos. I think, and just know I'm trying my best to keep it up. I wrote like 6 scripts between the last video and this one, and they were all so bad. But hey, I finally hit the jackpot, and by hitting the jackpot, I mean I did a top 10 because I'm really lazy. I'm sorry guys, I couldn't figure it out. Anyways, I'm actually planning to do a very special video coming up. I don't know if I'm gonna do it next because it's gonna be really hard to finish it quickly. Why am I wording this so weird? I'm just gonna show you. Ugh. I want to do a video about the My Little Pony manga, so that'll probably be coming up sometime soon. I haven't even opened this yet. I just did. This is the first time I opened it. Also, I'm bored of it being like me and maybe Ezra only on this channel. The rest of my friends don't upload because they're really lazy. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe. Sorry I yapped way too much at this section. Thank you for the recent support, and peace out.